Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome all to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, a presence in this community since 1865. I'm Dusty Francis, and I'm grateful to serve this congregation as Director of Music Ministries. I am likewise grateful that you have chosen to share this time together, whether you're here in the sanctuary or joining us online via the live stream. For those of you joining us for the first or second time and are still getting to know us, please consider completing our newcomer survey at uuaa.org/newcomer survey to allow us to better connect you to your interests here at UUAA. And if you are joining us here in person and are new, please consider stopping by the Redmond Room for a newcomer welcome following the service. You'll find the Redmond Room just out the main sanctuary doors on the left side of the hallway. Now, I'm very excited to get to be the one to tell you that today's service will end with a very special surprise, a fire drill. I know, I knew you'd be excited too. Following Reverend Theresa's reflection, you will be given instructions on how to complete this drill. No alarm will sound, and we are in no danger. But we do ask you to please take this seriously. While we hope that we'll never have need to use these procedures in an actual emergency, what we discover through this process today will be an important tool in keeping our beloved community safe in the future. Thank you for your cooperation, and please do come back inside at the conclusion of the drill for social hour with coffee and donuts and bagels. That was donuts, if you didn't catch it. Please note that parents and caretakers will need to meet their children or youth by finding Stella in the parking lot following the drill. So if you have a child who is participating in our SGD activities today, they will be evacuated safely, and you'll meet them by finding Stella after the drill. The ushers will guide you in this process when the time comes. Now, as we move more deeply into this time of shared worship, will you please close your eyes and join me in taking a collective breath. Thank you. We are gathered in community. We are gathered for worship.
Ritualized practices draw us into our time together with intention and focus. Our Chalice Lighting is one such practice, offering us a time to center as we shift our mood, our minds, and our hearts toward a shared purpose and deeper understandings. Our flaming chalice, the symbol of our faith, shines as a beacon to all who seek us. I imagine it high above us, as if on a steeple, sending its light out into the world. The higher we raise it, the more visible its beckoning flame. May all within its aura see it as an invitation to follow its light to our door. Each of us carries within us the spark of life embodied by this flame. Some call it the spark of the divine that dwells within us. In a sense, each of us is a chalice, holding within us a light so dazzling and so true that it cannot be denied. As it burns in your own heart, I invite you to seek it in those around you, to be open to the light of others, to warm yourself in its glow. This morning, Larry Works will kindle our flame. Larry? And for those of you participating online, Now is the time to light your own chalice, whether actually or symbolically. And if you enter your location in the chat, all will bear witness to the path of our light as it spreads out into the world. Together, let us say, we light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Larry. Every week when we gather, we revisit our covenant, the solemn pledge that binds us in community. With shared voice, we move ever more deeply into our time together, honoring each other and promising to act in love and care. Please hold these words in your heart as you speak them. As can often happen, repeated words grow stale if we let them. Let us remember that our covenant is a living promise, the pulsing heart of our community that guides us along our UU path. As we repeat the words of our covenant together, we reenact the gift that a broken covenant holds out to us, the chance to renew our vows and move on again in love. Please join me as we speak with intention. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
Would you rise as you're comfortably willing and able, and join in singing our song of aspiration, the words for which can be found on the screens in front of you. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and trust arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue. Thank you. Please be seated.
I'd like to invite Larry back up to the pulpit now to share the UUAA land acknowledgement. Larry is an active leader in the racial justice arc and was one of the key UUAA members who worked towards creating this land acknowledgement. Larry?
Thank you, Reverend Theresa. Our UUAA land acknowledgement was a collaborative effort of UUAA members and Michigan tribal members. It reads thusly. Several tribes of the Anishinaabe know this place as their home territory, especially the Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, as well as the Wyandot tribes. They have lived here for thousands of years, caring for the beloved earth, waters, plants, and creatures they know as sacred relatives, what Unitarian Universalists know as the interdependent web of life. European settlers conquered the land and displaced indigenous communities. Under the threat of violence, the U.S. government forced them to relocate or agree to treaties that ceded the territories. The taking of this land was formalized by the Treaty of Detroit in 1807. In the 1830s, some Potawatomi fled to Canada, while others were forcibly removed by the U.S. government, mostly on foot, on the trail of death to reservations in Kansas and Oklahoma. While many did not survive or were forced to leave, indigenous people continue living in Washtenaw County. Some are members of the 12 federally recognized tribes in the state of Michigan. As Unitarian Universalists, we recognize the many injustices committed against indigenous people We commit ourselves to being in right relationship with Indigenous people and to honor their sacred traditions by protecting the earth, the water, the sky, and all living things. The Racial Justice Arc would like to honor Indigenous people here today. If you are a tribal member and/or have a personal relationship or have had a personal relationship with members of an Indigenous tribe, regardless of state, territory, or country, please stand or raise your hand and be recognized. Miigwech, thank you. The next scheduled Indigenous event is the Dancing for Mother Earth Powwow, March 22nd to 23rd at Skyline High School. For members and friends interested in volunteering, please contact myself or Erica Lycan. Miigwech, thank you.
It should not be a surprise to you that October is our Energy of Action Stewardship Campaign Month, and we are already off to a good start. We have some incentives to get your pledges in early. If you pledge by the deadline of November 1st, you will be eligible to win one of 3 gift baskets. And the first drawing will be held tomorrow, so the odds are better the earlier you pledge. You can stop by the table at the front entrance on your way out today to make your annual pledge and learn what's in those gift baskets. Today, and on the following 2 weeks, we will hear from a congregant who has offered to share what it means to them personally to be part of this community and why they choose to make an annual pledge in support of UUAA. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Catie Hausman to the pulpit.
Good morning. In my working hours, I am an environmental economist. You're wondering what that is. I spend my time researching and learning about and teaching about how we make sure that environmental protection is adequately funded and resourced, knowing that our market economy is not, when left to its own devices, going to do that. So how do we protect this beautiful blue planet that we call home? That kind of sounds like what I'm here to talk to you about today, which is how we make sure that this institution, UUAA, that we call home, is adequately funded and resourced. So let me tell you 2 brief stories about why I pledged to UU. The first is from several years ago when Dr. Glenn Thomas was helping to lead Sunday mornings. And one Sunday, he was telling this lovely little story about how sometimes when he's walking his dog, he lets his dog choose where they're going to go on his walk. Except he never got to tell you that story, and I know the story only from the other service. The reason he didn't get to tell it is that partway through, my kid and I, we're sitting over there in what I like to call the children's mosh pit, my kid yelled out, "I want music!" And Glenn Thomas said, "What was that?" And I said, I'm sorry, he said he wants music. And Glenn Thomas thought for just a split second, and looked over at Allison and you all, and was like, "Sure, let's do that. Let's sing now instead." So at home, we talked about how we were never going to try this again, and the experiment has not been repeated. But what was so moving to me was that instead of telling this story about being flexible with a loved one, his dog, he just lived it all with you all in that moment without embarrassing me or shaming me. The second story is from a time a couple of years ago, some of you might remember this day, when we had a fire drill during the service. And I swear I did not know what today's plans were when I when I drafted up my remarks. So we all practiced how we would leave the sanctuary safely and how we would gather together outside. And this took a lot of staff planning. I know this because I was volunteering in one of the SGD classrooms at the time. And something that I know they worked on ahead of time was how will we get the infants and toddlers out? If you've never thought about how you might get a half a dozen or a dozen semi-mobile, squirmy little humans outside for a fire drill, it's not the easiest thing to do. But I got outside, and there was my baby being rolled out in a rolling crib, along with a couple of classmates, just absolutely delighted at his new vehicle. And so our staff had thought through what every individual was going to need to be able to get out of the building and how they would accomplish that and what help they would need to provide. And they had done so in this way that for my kid was just a delight and a joy. And so I saw that our leadership and our staff and our volunteers across all of these times with my family have wanted to get it right for inclusion of every single member of this congregation. And doing that requires time and it requires money to compensate our staff and to make sure that our building is well maintained. And I think that this deep and joyous inclusion is a big part of what makes us Unitarian Universalist. Thank you.
Thank you, Catie. We turn now to our weekly offering, the mindful practice of giving with a generous heart. In this shared practice, we sit together quietly as music plays, and gratitude and generosity bloom all around us. Now I realize that coming fast on the heels of Catie's lovely testimonial, it may seem to you that I am piling on. And I guess I am, because the gift I am asking of you comes from a different pocket. There's the pledge pocket and the offering pocket. If you are a pledging member or friend, the weekly offering, and this is true every week, not just during the pledge drive, is a chance for you to give beyond your pledge, if you choose and if you can. The Reverend Fran Dew, a former assistant minister at UUAA, used to call this an opportunity to give from your heart, an unplanned, unbudgeted, and spontaneous act of love and support. In her view, our pledges were the floor of our giving, and she was inviting us to be open to other ways of contributing. And one of those ways comes to us in the form of the collection plate. Today's offering will go to the programs and ministries of this congregation, and we have made it easy for you to give. You may text UUAA to 73256, or visit uuaa.org/giving and select weekly offering for the fund. And if you are here in person, you may grace the collection baskets with your cash or check donations as the ushers make their rounds. Thank you for your generosity, however you choose to give. I invite the ushers to please come forward as this morning's offering is gratefully given and received. Thank you, Chalice Bells. And now, as the ushers come forward, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we prepare to dedicate our offering with intention and in love. Together, let us say, to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
Dear friends, as we enter into a time of meditation together, I invite you to think for a moment about what is happening in your life right now that may have led you to be less than your best self. Given all that is happening in the world, it is very understandable that we feel anxious, afraid, maybe angry or alone, and sometimes that affects our interactions with others. Have you fallen out of covenant with any of your beloveds? Let's take this moment to breathe a bit more quietly, to find some stillness within, and to allow us to remember to be gentle on ourselves and with each other as we move back into right relationship, beginning again in love. We will continue our time of meditation by singing together number 1037 in the Teal hymnal. Number 1037, We Begin Again in Love. You will sing the words, we forgive ourselves and each other, we begin again in love, as a response to the words that I will speak. If you would, please remain seated, and in a spirit of stillness and quietness, let us sing together this meditation. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible,
we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
for each time we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other.
for the selfishness that sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
We are in the midst of holy days. This happens a lot for Unitarian Universalists. Our tradition has not really graced us with our own holy days. You can Google this, what holidays do UU celebrate? And you'll read on the UUA website that UU celebrate a variety of religious holidays, secular holidays, faith-specific holidays, and winter solstice. We are in the midst of a religious and secular holiday right now. Yom Kippur ended yesterday, and Indigenous Peoples' Day is tomorrow. Water communion, flower communion are uniquely Unitarian Universalist, faith-specific celebrations, but they feel different than holidays that appear on the calendar. They're on every calendar you own, right? Holidays like Eid al-Fitr or Christmas or Veterans Day. So as Unitarian Universalists, we are constantly in the midst of other people's holy days. And I find this makes my life richer. We take time here to honor, to learn about, understand, and celebrate other traditions. We can learn something from all of them. We can learn more about who we are, what we believe or don't believe, and we can experience ritual and music and sacred texts that are beautiful and full of wisdom. Any way that we can increase our understanding of traditions that are different from our own practices can lead us to understand individuals better, which can lead us to live more harmoniously with others who see the world differently and whose belief systems are different. As UUs, we might have within any one congregation those who identify deeply with other religious holidays. And I personally love the fact that we can honor and hold that within this faith. So at UUAA and as a worship team, we try to remember and honor holy days for Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, pagan, and other UUs. Now, we don't always accomplish this perfectly, but we strive to be as inclusive as we can. Now, Yom Kippur is one of the most solemn days in the Jewish faith. It is a day of atonement and forgiveness, a time of introspection and prayers. It is deeply personal, an individual in conversation with God, and involves asking for forgiveness. It is a time of confronting one's own sins. Individuals fast during Yom Kippur and observe several restrictions referred to as afflictions. Removing distractions of everyday life, like food and water, can help focus one's attention during this very personal journey. And similar practices are not unusual in Christianity or in Islam either. The idea of fasting, dedicated time for introspection and spiritual assessment. Think about Lent or Ramadan. But as Unitarian Universalists, we haven't designated a particular day or time or even season for this kind of spiritual work, of looking deeply inward and seeing where we have broken our covenants with each other. Maybe that's our equivalent of sin. Where have we fallen short? And then the next step of admitting we have messed up and saying we're sorry and asking for forgiveness. Or I might say finding a way back into right relationship. So without a specific time designated for it or day, perhaps it could become a daily practice for UUs. What if we took 2 minutes at the end of each day for a sort of spiritual assessment? Or if spirit doesn't work for you, an assessment of our human interactions of that day. Now, this would be mostly an individual endeavor, but we might also think about atonement and forgiveness collectively. And that, I think, connects us to the day we are marking tomorrow. Indigenous Peoples' Day is one of the secular holidays UUs celebrate and honor, but unfortunately, not everyone in the United States has embraced it yet. We have moved away from celebrating a person who, when I was growing up, I was taught was the one who discovered America. We've moved towards an understanding that this land we live on didn't need to be discovered. It had been the home of many peoples with rich cultures for ages. It was not up for grabs. It was not to be colonized, stolen, or destroyed. Having Indigenous Peoples' Day be part of our remembrances brings us closer to atoning for the egregious sins of the white folks, the European colonists, the sins we committed and perpetuate still. But it's not enough to just say, sorry, we were wrong. You heard earlier Larry read the land acknowledgement UUAA has prepared in collaboration with tribal leaders and presented to the congregation last year. It was the result of a deeply thoughtful process that took time. Now, you may hear land acknowledgements frequently in other contexts. Some folks have them at the end of their email signatures. Some acknowledge Indigenous people whose land they occupy in every opening or introduction they make, in person or on Zoom meetings. Have you heard these things? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Some congregations routinely share a sentence in their welcome of their land acknowledgement. I am humbled by and proud of the fact that this congregation, through the Racial Justice Arc's work, has approached the land acknowledgement in such a deliberate and thoughtful way that prioritizes establishing relationships with tribal elders and leaders who operate on what they call Indian time, not white people's time. So you also may have heard the phrase, moving at the speed of relationship in the context of racial justice work. I think this is hugely important. And because the Racial Justice Arc has made a commitment to work this way, we are continuing to move towards righter relationship and partnering with community justice groups and organizations within the Indigenous community. We have a ways to go, but we most certainly are on the way. So, dear ones, we are heading into the season of many holy days, holidays, some of which may hold significance to you personally for religious or secular reasons. May we see the blessing in the fact that in this faith, our place is always in the midst of these holidays. May we see it as an opportunity. May we approach our upcoming celebrations of Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, the winter solstice, or Christmas with curiosity and inclusivity in mind. May we learn something new, always. Amen. Shall we sing?
Always.
Yes.
Folks, I would invite you to rise in body or in spirit and
take a hold of that teal hymnal and open to hymn number 1011, 1011, as we sing together, Return Again, hymn 1011.
Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the home of your soul.
Thank you. Please be seated.
So friends, if you came in after the welcome, you did not hear the announcement that we will have a fire drill or an emergency evacuation of the building in today's service. So I want to let you know that we are about to start that drill. And there is no actual emergency right now, and this is just for practice. So please do go all the way out of the building, following the instructions of your ushers, even though it's a little bit damp. And then please do return again. Please do come back for the social hall coffee and donuts and bagels that are waiting for you. All right, so here we go. We're going to imagine we just heard an alarm that indicates we have an emergency. No, you need to listen to instructions. We have an emergency. Come on, people. Alarm. We have an emergency and we need to leave the building. We have a plan for evacuation. Remain seated, stay quiet, and listen for instructions. Parents and caregivers, your children are already being evacuated. Please stay with us. You will be reunited with your children once we are all outside. If you have mobility challenges and need assistance evacuating the sanctuary, please raise your hand or ask someone next to you to raise their hand. Off-duty ushers will provide assistance. Ushers, will you now move to the back row of your designated section and hold up your usher badge high so everyone can see you. I will instruct each section to a different emergency exit to get us out as quickly as possible. We will release one section at a time, so follow the usher in your section. All sections will exit their row by heading away from the windows toward the main entrance. When you get to the end of your row, turn right and then follow your usher. East section, this section here, if you would, starting from the back row, go out to the X, follow your usher to go out the main doors and take an immediate left past the bathrooms to the outside. Middle section, including the row of chairs against the wall. And starting with that row, if you will follow your usher's instructions to go out the back door that is underneath the clock, on the south wall. So you all will exit towards the door and then head to the right.